Welcome to the Yoga Well podcast. I'm your host today, Nancy Rue, and as a Yoga Wellian, I am also an author. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, about whether you have a story to tell and how yoga can play a part in that. And my guests with me today are Chase Bossart and Carrie Heeter, and they are going to be my students just like you. So should we get started? I've written a ton of books, but I am coming to you today as a writing mentor, which is a great deal of what I do at this point. You don't have to be a professional author or even think you're going to become one for any of this to have any meaning for you, because everybody has a story to tell. And how do we find that? And how do we decide, is it mine to tell? Is this something that I need to tell? So I'm going to start with you, Carrie. Do you have a story?
Well, actually, I'm going to first introduce myself.
Okay, do that.
That'll be a little bit of my story. Okay, so I am here. I've been with yoga for 15 years. I am a meditation teacher, a nonfiction writer, and a scientist.
And I'm here because nonfiction writer, may I add?
I'm here because I'm a huge fan of Nancy Rue, and I love her books. And I started talking to her about, hey, you want to do a podcast for Yoga Well? That, you know, and as we were planning this, I broke my leg, and then your new book came out. And your new book, which I love, is an interactive companion for writerly women of any age. And I started reading it to get ready for this podcast. And then I started doing some of the exercises. And so then it's like, you know what, Nancy? Maybe you could mentor me and Chase. And I started getting actually really interested in this. So that's my introduction. We'll let Chase introduce himself, and then you can ask your question, okay?
And can I just say, Chase, this will be a switch, me mentoring you. But your fingerprints are all over this. So you just stand by.
So I am a yoga teacher and was a longtime student of Mr. TKV Deshikachar. And in the last, there's been a lot of changes in the last 5 years of my life. I have moved states, moved into the country, adopted a little girl with my wife, bought a house, had a major health crisis. And all of those things have caused me to reevaluate my directions and activities, and I have now embarked on a writing trajectory. So I'm very interested to be mentored because I am actively in the process of establishing a writing practice and trying to communicate, what it is that I've understood about the yoga as a tradition and as a thing, and that's where I am in this idea of writing.
And I think that makes all of us happy because we want your legacy. We want it all in writing, right? And so both of you, actually, Carrie, your book is on meditation, and so what we're going to talk about today, I think, really fits what both of you have done and are going to do. So let's say you do have a story to tell. How do you find it? Where do you begin? Finding out whether you have a story starts with actually meditation. Only in the Scribbling Women, we call that focused dreaming. Because you know that in meditation, when we direct our attention, that's conscious, but something unconscious is happening. And so the story seems to come from nowhere, telling us things that we didn't even know we knew, from sheer force of, not from sheer force of will, but because it simply comes to you. So in trying to decide, do I have a story? We focus on an object of some kind, just as we do in yoga. We call this a nudge. All right. So I'm going to start you with something that may seem odd, but then this is woo-woo, right? It's creativity. It's got to be woo-woo. So I want you to think about, who would you tell a story to? who would you tell if you were going to tell a story, and Chase already knows what story he's going to tell, who would you tell it to? So we sort of meditate on that, we dream on that. And can you see that person that you're going to be telling this story to? So Chase, we'll start with you. Who is that?
This is one of the major problems that I'm facing.
Okay.
So my process actually has involved dreams. So I wake up in the morning and there's a fully formed idea.
Yeah.
And I madly shove aside things in my schedule so that I can sit down and afford it. But the problem that I run into again and again is Viniyoga is so personalized. It's so, I now, having taught Yoga Sutras for 20 years, 25 years, I'm realizing why Mr. Deshikachar mostly did it one-on-one. Because you say something that is true, and a few people in the class are like, oh, straight to their heart. It's so beautiful, amazing. And a couple of the people in the class are like, but, and don't you know, this other thing is true, and they're not wrong. This other thing is true. Exactly. But it's from a different perspective, and it applies in their situation. And so what's being said to the first people almost is like seed falling on the stone. And so I find myself, and the way that Viniyoga talks about this is, we have Chikitsa and Rakshana and Shikshana. We have healing and thriving and transcendence. And so who are you talking to and what are you talking about? And I have to say, I need some help with this.
Right. Okay. So that is where this kind of meditation, this kind of dreaming, very focused, can really be a help to you. Okay. Because you imagine just one person. Doesn't have to be everybody that you want to appeal to. You just choose one for now. Okay. Because you never know what then is going to unfold from that. So for example, I write contemporary women's fiction, and I immediately want to say, this is for all women, right? And so the more that I, right, yeah, but the more that, and no editor wants to hear that, right? And so the more that I focused on that, I realized I want the women who have been successful. They think they've got it. They're approaching middle aged, and something is missing. Usually it's something spiritual that they're unaware of. Okay. Then I could say, this is that one woman, and I can speak to her, because then you know exactly what you want to say. So instead of trying to reach everyone who might read your book, you're focusing on, this is the person who is brand new to Viniyoga, or this is the person who is in the midst of it and wants to know more. So that's a narrowing down. And then that may mean there's more than one book, Chase.
Well, I can see some of that process has come clear to me already, is that I'm really writing in order to capture overviews. Like, here's how you think about the progression of teaching breathing techniques. You start here, then here's the next one, here's the next one, here's the next one. So it's, if you're just beginning your journey of learning breathing techniques, it's way too much information. But if you have already studied and you have gone some distance into it, and maybe you're in the process of starting to guide others in their practices, then this will be really useful, because it's going to help you to remember, oh, here's the whole trajectory of all the different possibilities, and here's the general steps we want to take. We want this to be established first, and then after that is, we drop that, we want to go to the next thing. And this cannot be established in these various ways, and so here's what you would do.
Yes.
And so
So
this
really,
conversation is really helping me to see
Good.
that, I'm talking to the teacher, or I'm talking to someone who's
exactly. And again, the
has
beginner,
a foundation,
maybe a different audience altogether. So that is first and foremost, who am I talking to? Who do I really want to tell this story to? Carrie, how about you? If you have a story in your mind, or even if you don't have a specific story, who would you love to tell a story to?
Well, I have been meditating on actually, is it okay to tell a story?
We're going to get to that in a second. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And so, right. So who would I want to tell it to? I have taught user experience design, and one of the premises is design for just one user, right? Mm-hmm. And my students always wanted to have it be a product for everybody, but I don't think I'm at a point where I know who I want to tell the story to. Mm-hmm. I think I want to tell it probably to myself right now.
There you go.
If that makes any sense.
There you go. That is an excellent place to start. I think that's the first thing that we need to know. As long as we kind of have narrowed the focus. Now, let's go a little deeper in this meditative thing. How do you want to tell the story? And picture yourself. Do you want to do this as if you were sitting by a fire with a bunch of people? Or do you want to tell it as if you had some kind of mystical power and you could just get into people's heads? Or do you want to tell the story while you're traveling together? So this is a metaphor, and it's more difficult for the two of you because you're both nonfiction. For us fiction writers, it's like, I can see us. So Chase, how do you want to tell the story? As if you and your readers were where?
I'm thinking of it as a manual.
Okay.
So I'm thinking these, here's how to hold the overarching information, and here's how to use it in a skillful way to apply with a specific person or whatnot. So I guess for me, it's as though I am mentoring. A lot of what I try to do in my teaching is I want people to have their own personal practice that's being designed and led by someone.
Yes, exactly.
But I also want there to be the background information. Like I want people to be studying, well, what are we doing? And what is yoga? And how does I want there to be the overall engagement with the whole process at the same time that there is this very individual exploration of me and my relationships and all of that. And so I am thinking to provide contexts. Here's what Yoga Sutra is.
Right.
Here's what Ujjayi is, and here's how it applies to other things. And then, so it's more manual with a slice of here's the principles underlying how to think about its application.
So it's almost as if you have all of these already established yogis, right? You have them all together for a week-long intensive. That's sort of the picture then that we have in mind. Okay. You would be amazed at what that does as you are writing, and this is who I'm writing for, and this is how I want to talk to them.
This is very helpful.
Good.
Maybe it's a month long or a year.
Yeah, right. It's a 2-year intensive. What a concept, right? Yeah, exactly. And you can be as specific as you want to be in this intensive, because these are not newbies. And it is not going to be like drinking from a fire hose, like it was for me when I took your intensive. So Carrie, if you're going to tell a story, how do you like to tell a story? Because you have told me many stories in the times that we've talked.
Well, your books and thinking about this podcast has actually gotten me interested in what if I allow myself to write fiction.
Fiction. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Am I allowed to not just be, this is what they really said, and this is the truth of it? And so the context that has been starting to come to me is the coffee shop. Right?
Love
this
it.
spot where who knows who walks in and how. I mean, and I'm sort of, this strange woman walks up to me the other day and she said, "Oh, I saw you a year ago. You had a different cup with a sticker of a cat on it." And then she said, "I just swam across to Alcatraz yesterday." She was an elderly Asian American woman. It's like, people are so interesting. But I'm still in the journalist mode. And so I'm just moving into permission, and I'm feeling inside like something is loosening, that you get to make stuff up, or you have to. The idea of that,
and people pay you for it, right?
I know, but so I'm sort of just feeling that opening to the possibility of what if I get to not be quite so truth oriented, accuracy,
Yes. Okay. So you're coming at this from two different places.
A little bit different.
Yeah. So for anybody who's listening, who thinks I might want to write fiction, I might want to write a story, the questions, the nudges to meditate on are, how would it feel to pen a tale that somebody else might read? What would that feel? What would Chase, you use this a lot. What are the qualities? With the qualities that you want to experience? And who is this character that keeps poking at you and showing up everywhere? You're in the shower and suddenly someone's in there with you. That's what fiction writers do. It's a little bit creepy, right? Or why, and this applies to you, Carrie, why did I walk into this place and suddenly imagine that something important could happen here? Okay. Those are the times when I do have a story. Now for Chase, it's a little different because you've already done that. Right. You already know this is something that I really have to do. With you, it's more of it's a big old nudge. It's a body slam, right? That this is something that I need to do. So, Carrie, let's focus on you in this next question, but it's for you too, Chase. Is it okay for me to spend my time exploring the possibility of writing? That very question is what we call a boho. Big old hairy obstacle. And even you, Chase, I'm sure may have some bohos that enter into this in terms of, should I be doing this? So the first thing to do, the questions that they ask are things like, is this a waste of time? Shouldn't I be spending my time? So for you, Chase, shouldn't I be spending this time with my little girl? Or shouldn't I be doing more for Yoga Well? Or shouldn't I be practicing myself? Okay. Those are bohos that lie. They hiss and they try to draw you away. I think other bohos are, can I make any money at this? Or for you, Carrie, I've written nonfiction. Is it okay for me to do fiction? Is this nonsense? Right. So I think the first thing to do is to picture that boho in your head. So mine is a woman with a very pointy nose, pointier even than mine, raisin lips, and was baptized in vinegar, I'm pretty sure, and who says things to me like, aren't you getting a little old for this? Haven't you written enough books? You're done. Nobody wants to hear what this old lady has to say anymore. Okay. So for you, Carrie, what is it hissing to you? What is it saying to you?
So I'm not fond of following rules.
No.
And so I guess it's a set of someone holding a thing like this,
like a clipboard or something?
directions and rules.
Yes.
And I've grown up with, I started out in media production and a documentary, right? So you want to be accurate and quote people, and as a researcher, you want exactly what they said and capture, and that's your data. So I have a lifetime of this, and those rules I accepted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, wait a second, why did I accept those rules? And what if, what if I get to toss those out too? So it's like the 10 commandments of nonfiction accuracy and truth.
Yeah. And fiction is completely different. There aren't any rules. And don't ever let anybody tell you that there are. And for you too, Chase, there aren't any rules in how to do this. There are other books about yoga, but this is your own. And a boho tells you, you're not doing this right. Right. Do you have any bohos, Chase, or have you transcended enough?
I do, but before we get there, I want to follow up on Carrie's piece a little bit, because
okay,
your book on meditation, Carrie, is really a special book. It has really captured what is the experience of repeatedly focusing the mind in a particular direction, and how that changes your experience of life, of the world. And it does it in such accessible and easy to understand ways. And right now, when you were just talking about, you started off in documentaries, and you wanted to capture. I can really see how this book has that flavor, and how that background really plays into. And also, as a full professor at Michigan State University in the experience design, you have spent your life thinking about how do you create experiences, and how do those experiences, how are they digested? What keeps somebody coming back for more? And what is the relationship between experience and the person, and vice versa? And this to have that background in your approach to understanding meditation, and then to write a book which captures that in such a delicate and vulnerable and personal way. It's really a magical book.
Thank you. I would get to a point where I needed something more in this chapter, but I'd already done all my interviews, and then the meditation experience of my own would show up.
That's exactly.
And I said, well, this is really embarrassing.
We could probably end the podcast right now, right? Because that's it exactly. And when the boho, okay, so it's like in meditation. What I learned from you, Chase, is that when intrusive thoughts come in, you just let them pass, right? And it's the same way with these thoughts that say, should I be doing this? You learn in meditation to just let them pass, because and Chase, who you are, what you know, and how to pass that on. Do you ever have any doubts, Chase?
I do, but I'm not done with Carrie yet. I'm sorry, Nancy. so it's fascinating.
I'm not done with you yet either.
I'm done with both of you.
It's fascinating to me that and it's BOHO, big old what?
Hairy obstacle.
Hairy
big
obstacle.
Old hairy obstacle.
Okay, so
because most of us think of it as something big and hairy that comes in and says, "You can't do this. You have no business doing this. You're bad at this."
It's fascinating to me that the boho is the confines of accuracy, and because so much of what I think of in terms of what is experience design is the setting up of structures that allow something to arise which maybe doesn't exist, or is only existing within the experience of the person. And so here you are. Maybe this is a further development of your own personal journey in the blossoming of something that outside of the strict bounds of the process that brought you into it. I know.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that?
Well, my other boho is it being okay to spend any moment doing something that's not going to make the world a better place. And so that kind of is like, is this really, an okay use of this moment of my life?
Is it worthy of my time? And since Chase is refusing to tell us about his bohos,
Oh no, I'm not.
because
Chase has the weight of all of the legacy of Viniyoga to carry. Yeah. So it's a gigantic boho of changing the world. But okay,
I'm happy to share my bohos, and actually, I have some
so we're going to get to that, Carrie, in a second. Is this
your Carrie, please.
Okay, all right, Chase, tell us your bohos, man.
As soon as Carrie says, how do you approach this? Is it okay for me to spend time writing?
That is what I'm going to do next. So let's do
okay.
That. Okay. So the question to ask ourselves is, why do I want to write this? That's where the answer is about, should I spend time doing this, is the why. Why? Who needs this story? Why does it need to be told? And I think fiction writers struggle with this more because we're not doing what you're doing, Chase, which is providing a manual and all of this context and all of this information and what you did in your book, Carrie. But a story can carry so much weight. It stays with you. It's profound. And so the why am I telling this story is the real question that gives you the permission. So actually, it does make the world a better place, one person at a time, right? And not everybody who reads it, but maybe just that one person. So why, for example, did I write this book, the Scribbling Woman? Because I came across again and again exactly what we're talking about in the people that I mentor. Yeah, but is this okay? Shouldn't I be doing something? Especially women. Women have a really hard time with this because we do have many, many hats that we wear. And I realized we need a book that I want women writers to be able to dream. I want them to winnow their way to what's possible. I want them to shape a story in a way that's unique to them. And then I want them to be able to do that in the life that they have in front of them. That was my why. And so I had absolutely no trouble giving myself permission to do that. And it's the same with the fiction. I always have to know, okay, why? What's the point? Not a theme, but a through line. How do I want my reader to walk away changed? And if you can answer that question, you have just given yourself permission. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm always like a few steps back from that yet.
Mm-hmm.
But in yoga and meditation, kind of the juice, what the addiction is when you feel a shift, when something changes and you notice yourself transforming a little, or you go back to it. And so my why right now is that I was only doing this to get ready for this podcast. Which is such a wonderful backward way to get into becoming, starting to write. But it was like, I can start feeling things shifting, and this is feeling like a new exploration for me that I'm not sure what the benefits will be eventually, but it feels worth doing because the shift feels significant. So I guess we say my knowing is why, this hint.
And the benefits may be for you. And I'm not going to say just for you. I'm going to say for you because there's something very significant about that as well. So, but I like your idea of a shift. Suddenly you just know this is something I have to do. I kind of know why. And then we do it, because I know that in working with you, Chase, in yoga, I was never clear on exactly why are we doing this? Why are we doing this with our nose? And then eventually it becomes clear. So there's that nice dichotomy between just meditating and kind of letting it flow, but also focusing on, but why? So it's both conscious, like the control of the mind, which is so much of yoga, right? So much of the control of the mind, and then the allowing, the opening up. And it's not just a metaphor for writing. Yoga and writing is not a metaphor for it is. They are the same thing when you get right down to it. Do you see what I'm saying, Chase? Does that make sense?
I think it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Good. So
Carrie, can you spell out a little bit more about what this transformation is? I'm happy to share mine,
yes.
but I would like to hear a little bit more about what's going on inside.
It's brand new. It's very fresh. It's been especially just this week, right? But that's okay because I love that. But it's just sort of this opening up. I'm looking at writing and thinking, what if I can develop some of the internal dialogue that, Nancy, when you write so well. Quoting the beginning of A Mob of Scribbling Women, I know things I'm not talking about. No, I know things. I'm not talking about the facts. I like the fact that my inspirational author was a bit of a whiner, and the fact that if they were fitted properly, corsets were not instruments of torture for women. I mean, to be more observant my inner dialogue is actually very quiet. There's not a lot of talking going on, but the things that you write about and others like so interesting. And how do I just start doing some opening up of more of that, more observing, more noticing. I've never wanted to be without a pencil in my hand since sixth grade. I can't listen to podcasts while driving because what if I want to take a note, right? But then the notes go nowhere. But I just have to take a note. But anyway,
you have to write them down. That's how they sink in.
I don't know if that's answering, but yeah, I don't know.
I think that you are doing two things that I usually have to teach people who want to be who start off, I want to be a writer. You're coming at it as how did you say it? Back-assward, right?
Back-assward, yeah.
Yes, you're already doing two things that I suggest to people, which is writing down those thoughts. So journaling, that's the way a book starts, is just get it all down and don't question anything. Don't worry about whether it's good. It's just a big blurt, right? And then the observing, you sitting in the coffee shop and observing the way people are acting and the things that they say, and the fact that they come up to you and start talking to you, it's probably because you look so interested. And those are two things that it's sometimes hard to get writers to do. They just want to sit down and write the story instead of, I don't like the word brainstorm, but I do like the open up to the ideas and just blurt them all down and observe everything. Yeah, you are already on your way.
One of the suggestions in your book is to say, we're in the presence of our characters. What if you let your character write in your journal? And I was thinking for Chase, the persons that you're writing for, let them dialogue with them, in your head.
Let them ask you questions.
Or write stuff.
So I have a writing coach, and the piece that the first assignment was to do some breathing, and then after the breathing to 5 minutes of just free form writing.
Yes.
Followed by 20 minutes of writing about something. That morphed.
That's a good coach.
Almost immediately into 20 minutes of journaling. And the first 2 months, basically what came out was, for me, the boho is, what's everybody going to think? I can talk easily. And in a context of a class, or the context of a discussion with a group of people or whatnot, it's easy to frame the container. And if someone has a confusion and says, no, that's not correct, or I don't agree with that, or whatever, we can work through that. But if I'm going to put something out and it's going to be there, then and what I saw was that this is a pretty major block in what I have. I haven't produced very many written things in the course of my teaching. And actually having so what my process has morphed into is breathing, followed by journaling.
Yeah.
And the journaling has been very helpful in actually articulating things. And I think of it a lot like this meditation that we do where we give someone an imaginary rose and we ask them to pick a petal of the rose and then offer the rose to someone and say whatever's on their heart. Right? And in doing that meditation, very often what happens is there is first an feeling of the feels, right? There's an experiencing of whatever is there, and then after that has been experienced, then there is a refining of the issue, and it usually results in some coming to a nugget where the person becomes clear. This is what the issue is, and it's no longer driven by the emotions because they've had a chance to say their F-bombs or their anger, express their anger or their grief or whatever the thing is, right? So for me, the process has been to actually articulate. The journaling has been a way of actually articulating those things that what happens is I get to write something and then I rewrite the same sentence 500 times.
Yes.
And the reason is because I keep imagining, well, so-and-so might oppose it in this way. And, you know, this other person might oppose it in this other way, et cetera, et cetera. But when I actually have that articulated and felt out through the journaling, then when I sit down, there's a kind of clarity and it just comes.
It just happens. Yes.
And then there's a weight to it. And, you know, there's a feeling within me that what has come through me is you know, if you could put in air quotes, right. It's the RIGHT thing, or it's the appropriate, or so that's been the boho and the process of engaging with it.
And I think the real word, rather than right or appropriate, is authentic.
Okay. Yes.
That's the word to go for is. And the thing with what will people think being the boho is that's a very real boho, because somebody's going to read it and we want them to think what we want them to think, right? And so it's very difficult, I think, to get past that and do exactly what you're doing, which is to get it out there without that, then go back and revise. And if you look at that and say, not everybody's going to love this, but this is authentic, then you're okay. Because the bohos are afraid. They're really, these are our fears, right? And they're masquerading as the boss. They're masquerading as somebody who knows better than you do when it's actually. And I like to imagine giving it a cookie, patting it on the head, and then going about my business, right? And the other thing about yoga, I think, is that in the course of becoming more authentic and following that path, the bohos are quieter. It's when something is really important to us, as this is to you, that's when they really begin to speak. But I can tell you from my experience, nobody does it like you do. And
well, that's true of everyone.
Right.
But it's very true of Chase.
There you go. That is the answer to the question of the universe, is that there is nobody like you. Nobody else would do it the way you do. And so what really matters is, who are you writing it for and why?
You know, I'm reminded a little bit of when I'm designing meditation, the arguments that I have with Marcel. He's not there, right? But I've studied with him for so long that you know, and I'm like, well, no, I'm doing it this way. He said, no, you're not. It's like, But so, Chase, I think that you also have some specific critics, like people in the field who are going to be seeing it, not just this generic, well, people like it.
Mm-hmm.
So why not maybe recruit them in your head and say, okay, now I'd like your opinion. Thank you very much. Bye.
Not
as
at
opposed
first,
to this
but
generic
when you're ready for
concern.
that. Yeah.
If you want their opinion, have them on your team, but then override them. And then when I meet with Marcel about it later, it's like, I know I should have.
But I've already had this conversation with you.
Exactly.
You didn't even know. Yes, exactly. Right. So if the answers to those first two questions for those people who are listening are yes, I have a story, and yes, I'm going to give myself permission to write it, then how does yoga help you get started? And Chase, you have an amazing coach, because the very next thing that I'm going to say is breathe, right? Because breathing, of course, is the basis for yoga practice. At least it is for mine. And writing a story is actually a matter of breathing onto the page, or writing nonfiction, writing your manual, whatever it is we're doing, we're breathing onto the page. That takes away all of I've got to wrestle with these characters. I got to get this plot in shape. I've got to get everything organized here so it's clear what's the context. Oh my gosh. We are simply breathing. That's the basis for all of it. And I think that starts with finding a process that's right for you. And there are some people call them pantsers and planners and plantsers. I don't really like those terms, because pantser sounds like you're just doing it from the seat of your pants because you don't know what you're doing, right? And so in the Scribbling Women, we call that being an intentional writer or an intuitive writer. And I know you've had yoga students and meditation students. You can see the way they operate, right? I am definitely much more of an intentional yoga practitioner, right? Where I see people who it's just like they're just floating. And neither one of those is wrong. It is, what is your essential nature, right? And so I think paying attention to that, I think, Chase, you are being a very intuitive writer, it seems to me. But you're doing it kind of according to a structure, right? And Carrie, for you, it's also intuitive, even though you're used to intentional. So we have to play with that, I think, and find out what's the best process for me, what's unique for me. Chase, how do you see that?
Well, I'm just thinking about the things that you laid out earlier about, choosing one person to write to, and that's probably not news to you, but it's not the first time I have heard this idea. But to hear the way that Carrie articulated, the way you articulated it, I can just see in the actually sitting down and writing how it's much simpler, because one of the hardest things to do is the introduction, and you don't actually need the introduction. You just say, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so here's how to think about this, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so I this is one of the questions with AI, right? So I actually chose a writing coach that doesn't want to use AI, and for me, I don't want to use AI either. I think that in yoga philosophy structure, if you look at what is the problem in life, is that our past experiences become the foundational program for the present.
Right.
And
just what Carrie was just talking about, right?
What is AI? But AI is the past experiences programmed to, regurgitate to here's what it is now. And I so what was really important for me is in this process of establishing a writing practice, which I am in the very beginning stages of. I don't feel like I've gotten
you're still
there
finding
yet.
your way. Yeah.
But is that I really want it to be an expression of good yoga, and that is the person's knowledge and the person's understanding and the person's personality, and those things are
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
but they're supporting the something moving through them, and it being the
Mm-hmm.
the expression of the greater peace. And I really hear that in these clips from your book that Carrie's been reading about how, or you were, saying earlier about how, things that you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yeah.
um, you have to get out of the way for that to happen.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that's
It's
what I want to. That's what I want to have happen
yes.
in
Yeah.
writing this.
And without one of the quotes that I so often present to people is, "Without a vision, the people will perish." And it's not like they just won't do very well. They're going to perish. They're going to shrivel up and die. You have a vision, and I'm sort of hearing it becoming more and more clear as we're talking, right? And for you, Carrie, it's that is yet to come. You just know that you want one, right?
Well,
And that you're open to it.
I feel like, I look at what's happening in the world today and say, what can I do? What's my
Yeah,
role? Right?
yeah.
And I'm doing meditations and I'm offering those as part of it. But the hints that I'm getting is that there is a way in which stories may be a contribution to the
Mm-hmm.
situation,
Yeah,
in different ways. And I don't want to get clear on anything yet, but I also
right.
want to say that you have motivated me. I know when I'm doing a podcast, I'm not supposed to take notes because, it makes a scribbly sound and gets picked up on the microphone, but I
I know. I'm
couldn't
kind of
keep my
loving it
hand.
myself.
Yeah, I couldn't keep my hand from getting it. And I wrote down, exhale your story as you're talking
Hmm.
about breathing onto the page. I mean, so this is like, it was too exciting not to capture that moment, which will now get
Love
lost in
it.
my pages.
Love it.
Yeah.
And when we're practicing yoga, I have learned from both of you to pay attention to the subtleties and kind of surrender to them. So I remember my very first yoga teacher, and I was just as stiff and as you can possibly be, and everybody's doing down dog, and I am not there. And she came over to me and she said, "Let's see what's possible." And that has always stuck with me, so that in this writing process, let's just stop and say, what's possible right now? What's possible? And so you, Chase, are saying, I'm in the beginning, and Carrie's like, I don't want to know too much, right? That's what's possible right now. And I think that what we run into sometimes is, I've got this story, I've got to get it down, I've got to start at the beginning, go to the end, and nobody does that. Um, and it's also a matter of paying attention to things like, what time of day are you the most creative, and what do you need in your surroundings? What tools do you need? And you can't see much of it, but I am in my writing studio, and everything has been curated because that's what I need around me when I write. And in yoga, uh, you always talk about setting up your digs, right? And having the do you need a mat? Do you need a pillow? Do you need a bolster? It's the very same thing. These things are all incredibly important. And being curious. I'm always curious when I realize, oh, this arm is really going straight, and Chase should be happy to know that all my fingernails are on the floor and my elbow and my shoulder. I think of you all the time, and being curious about, why is this better today than others? It is a process. It's not like anything else that we do. And I'm sure you're discovering that. And then, of course, force nothing. You can't force anything, right? And I used to, in our intensive, Chase, when you would say to me, Nancy, don't try that. Like, Lois, you can do this. Nancy, you can't. And I learned early on not to be offended by that there's no forcing, because I got there eventually. So we set our intentions, and then we surrender. And that's when the most authentic things happen. Any thoughts before we move on to our next question?
Lots of thoughts, but I don't know, do you have, talk a little bit more about what's in your studio? I love peeking around the edges when we have Zoom calls, but
Yes.
what is it for you?
Well, there's a big space right in the middle for yoga, and I keep my mat and my bolsters and everything at the ready, and that starts off the day. I have a huge window where I can look out. I have one corner that is just for writing longhand, and then this, when I'm sitting in front of it, is two huge screens and an ergonomic keyboard, and then there's the bookshelves behind me, and there's a closet over here. There are baskets everywhere, because if I'm like right now, I'm finishing up the third novel in the collection of novels that I'm working on. But the fourth one has a basket, and all of her stuff goes in there. And every once in a while, I can see her peeking up over the top of the basket. This is the protagonist, right? And saying, "What about me?" And so I have set it up over the years, because I have been in this studio for 30 years, and I've been writing for 40 plus, and that it has evolved over time, and it will, according to, because I am no longer doing back-to-back deadlines, and this is my full-time job, and this is my living. And so, those things change, and that environment is so important, I think.
And that whiteboard?
The whiteboard is my what if board. And in the center, it says, "What if?" And then there are all the various things that I do. What if I tried this? What if I tried that? So that my possibilities are always in front of me. And I like to stop and look at that and go, "Oh, look, I did this." Or, "You know what? That really wasn't the best idea." You don't cling to anything, I think. And that's kind of what I'm hearing from both of you. I'm very impressed with the approach that you're taking.
The more that we're talking here, the more that I see that the part that's really been the block for me is the feelings, and that the way that process that I've been doing is it's really accessing those feelings so that they can be they can be felt and returned to their appropriate place. And I can really see that. I can really see that the piece that is, it's not really about all the things that the feelings make it about, like precision and correctness and blah blah blah. It's more about letting it, just letting it out.
Yes.
And yeah, that's and me, and I'm also like Carrie, like I've taken a whole bunch of notes here in the course of our conversation.
Which I love. Yeah. And the perfection and the getting it right has no place in that first draft. It's first draft is supposed to be a hot mess. The word is first, meaning there will be others, right? And not a dumpster
What's a draft?
fire. It's a draft. Right, exactly. And I think it's a shame in a way that we all write on computers, because in the days of the typewriter, something wasn't working, you ripped it out, you crumpled it up in a ball and threw it on the floor. And the more pieces of paper you had around you, the harder you were working. Right now, there's no evidence of that whatsoever, unless you're using track changes. And so we don't really recognize that there are, different drafts. So you are very wise to just get it down there, and we'll play with it later. That's second draft things. It's and it feels like you're not. Let's go with this next question, which was Carrie's question, which actually, what even is writing? And I think it's important to clarify that, so that we recognize that every step we take is moving us in a direction. Because if we say, what is yoga? I'm going to ask each of you, and you're probably each going to give me a different definition. This isn't really fair, Chase, because, you always answered this question. But if you could say it to me in a couple of sentences, what is yoga?
Yoga is surrender.
Okay.
Appropriate surrender.
Carrie?
I'll buy that.
Okay, you just messed up my whole point.
Not being sold. Not for
I know,
sale.
but
Offered
I know,
freely.
I know.
But there,
I live
okay,
that.
that is absolutely, that's how I look at it as well. And then there are all these facets of it. It's breathing. It's directing your mind. It's the path to authenticity. It's the practice. It's the meditation. It's the chanting. It's all those things. And so if I say, what even is writing? We answer it with just as many facets. So it's the free expression of ideas, even for ourselves. It could be storytelling in any of its forms. It's the dreaming, it's the planning, it's the drafting, it's the editing, it's all those things. But I think one of the things that we miss is that it is initially the gathering of ideas with a butterfly net, right? You don't discriminate. You just gather all the butterflies. And then you sit down with them and say, which butterflies do I need? And then we let that percolate. And the percolation period is what a lot of people skip. And it happens at various times in the course of the writing journey as well. And so let's say you don't want to write that introduction, Chase, so you don't write it yet. You just write everything else and then go, okay, here's how I want to introduce this. But you've percolated on that. And of course, my younger writers go, what does percolate mean? Because they never saw a percolating.
Well, what I was thinking is, how do you write anything if you haven't started?
Well, exactly.
I mean, you haven't started and, started to introduce the topic. How do you write anything?
Right. But you have this idea. This is what I want to do. And you get an outline, but the actual polishing of the introduction, that's, if I'm writing nonfiction, that's the last thing that I do. It's writing is what you need it to be. And then we practice. Right. And that's exactly what you're doing, Chase. You're practicing and you're dreaming, you're percolating on that, you're doing the thing. And that is, I think, just to clarify that, yeah, that's what we're supposed to be doing, I think is very reassuring to people.
I think if I would have also answered the yoga question, I would have added it's a way of life and a way of being and thinking. And so you would say that with writing as well, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I'm percolating, I'm writing. When I'm sitting in the coffee shop looking at the people who have come in, I'm writing. It's not just the moments my pen is on the paper or when I'm revising.
Right.
It's a way of being with the content and all of that. Mm-hmm. and the
absolutely, it is a way of being.
Of it. Yeah. I'm going to read 2 more lines from your book.
Okay.
This is just because the introduction, the first few lines of a book, they're just so wonderful. So this is from the beginning of More Than a Footnote. It begins, it wasn't my idea. I hadn't had an idea in 10 years. Where does this come from? How do you start? I just love, I don't know. I know this seems like it's out of it, but it's the inspiration, right? And so reading and going, how does she do that? And that's so cool. And look how that makes me feel. And what a fascinating, so how do I get to that? Right.
I wrote that beginning so many different times. And then I got about halfway through the book and went, I know how I want to start it. So I think it's to surrender, as you say, Chase, to the fact that it's not a linear process. Even nonfiction, it's not linear. There is I don't start with, when I first started writing, I wrote for kids because I knew it was simple and there was a certain structure to it. And I knew kids, and that was, and then the further I got into writing for adults, then that began to build, and I began to depend more on that inspiration. So I can't always tell you where it comes from. I just know that it's kind of like Pablo Picasso saying, inspiration exists. It has to find you working. Right?
This has been so cool. This was live mentoring.
Love
has
it.
been such an honor to be mentored by you. And I
Agreed.
appreciate this
Thank
so
you,
much.
Nancy.
And it doesn't even feel like mentoring because you are both so there. You're naturals. And I think anyone who says, do I have a story to tell? That's the beginning. You wouldn't ask the question if you didn't. And then trusting. I think if I would leave you with anything, it is to trust that something Chase taught me. Wherever you put your attention, that will grow.
Sweet.
Thank you, both of you. We could talk all day.
Hallelujah. Amen.
I'm sure.
Thank you
we
so
could
much.
talk all day. And thank you for everyone.
Thank you for
Until next
hosting,
time.
Nancy. Super.
Scribble on.
Thank you.
Oh, there's one last piece, which is if you're interested in Carrie's book, it is called An Inside Look into Meditation. At meditation, experiences for healing, support, and transformation.
It is
Don't
a
miss
wonderful
that book. It's an amazing book.
It is an amazing
And soon we'll be pitching Chase's book.
Pitching Chase's book. And but then we should come back together and talk about how do you do that? How do you get it out there into the world? That's
Great.
a whole other element. Yeah.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you so much,
Thank
everybody.
you for having me. It's been great.